welcome to Carnivore Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin, and a lot of things going on in the news. We see that when you have a weak president, you basically have a situation where countries take advantage of you, and we see that in Taiwan, where I think there were 75 jets flying over in China. I mean, from China, basically sending the clear signal. I think there's been some other activities as well.
Yeah, China has literally threatened World War III. They have no respect for the Biden administration. Granted, neither does anybody else. But it is becoming increasingly dangerous because countries do not believe that the US will stand by our allies because we abandoned them in Afghanistan. They don't believe we will stick with the fight because we abandoned Afghanistan. Biden has no credibility, especially when foreign policy is concerned.
Yes, I would agree. I think when you have a very weak president who's obviously senile, the other parties look at what's going on. I mean, the only thing I'm concerned about, Dr. Lopkin, is can he overreact?
He can overreact. That's a definite danger. I don't know which is worse. Him kowtowing to China because Hunter still has connections to China, or him overreacting, trying to prove he's in control
I think the
and
latter is
pushing us
more the
into a
case.
war.
Yeah, I think the latter is more the case when you really look at it, because he could overreact or he could do nothing. Both are horribly bad. Speaking of horribly bad, both parties are now underwater in terms of their approval rating. I think that's no surprise. I think with anyone. I
No, it's
mean,
not a surprise. And quite frankly, in most polls, when you look at a party, they tend to be underwater. Most parties have, the Democrats and Republicans have traditionally polled at less than 50%, because the problem is people still believe that they're electing officials to actually get what they want done. And instead, the parties just fight among themselves and don't get anything done.
that is absolutely true, and I think that's for good reason. They're both underwater. And then in Afghan, you have a lot of controversy in terms of the administration trying to talk about how much of a success it is and was, but there's actually no doubt about it that Americans were left behind and some of them killed.
Yeah, there is no doubt. I mean, it was absolutely amazing when the generals testified in front of Congress that they said it was a logistical success. No, it was not a logistical success. It was not any kind of success. And quite frankly, congressmen and senators on both sides of the aisles called them out as saying this was not a success by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, it's like same thing of like, wait a second, it's like a football game, and you could say, well, logistically it was a success, but we lost 60-20. Yeah, logistically we were successful. It doesn't make a difference. That's a really mincing words, I believe.
And fortunately, the American public is not stupid. They know that of Afghanistan was not a success the same way they know every time Biden says his $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill has no cost. They
Yeah,
know he's lying about this.
we certainly hope so. But the only thing I would say that maybe they don't is because if you watch CNN or MSNBC, you might get a different slant than should be the case.
Yeah, I mean, CNN is still hanging on to their ridiculous narrative, but more and more even liberals are turning against the Biden administration. The highest profile liberal so far, Bill Maher, who has been a staunch liberal for years, he is now going after the left every week.
Yeah, I see this happening more and more. I think you'll actually going into the, if you will, mainstream media, but we will see. But I think it does have an effect on a new Q poll, which states that the midterm elections doesn't look too promising for the Democrats.
No, we've been talking about this for a long time. The polls are going to continue to show this. Again, historically, the incumbent party always loses the midterm elections. So they started fighting against the wind. Then Biden's dropping poll numbers, his abject incompetence at the border, his incompetence in Afghanistan, rising inflation prices. This has all turned voters against the Democrats. And in fact, you see it most among independents. Independents are going, no, we cannot put up with this. So you're seeing and the Democrats know they're going to get shellacked because Chuck Schumer has said on several occasions, anything we're going to get passed, we have to do it now because we're not going to be able to get anything done past once we get into midterm season.
Well, speaking of caving, I mean, or getting things done, before the midterms, Manchin looks like he could be caving. There's mixed signals, but he's giving a little mixed messages.
There are mixed signals. Manchin said he would support a bill with a ceiling of 1.5 trillion. Biden has said they will negotiate for this. The Democratic Socialist Caucus, and I'm not just referring to the
You
squad.
mean the Taliban?
There's about 40 of, the Taliban. There's about 40 of them that are holding out, have basically said that 2.5 is an absolute minimum. They won't vote for anything less than that.
You want my prediction? I think the bill's dead.
I think the bill is dead.
And what does that say to Biden? What does it say to Biden's? I'll use the term. I don't mean legacy is not the right. His future endeavors. I think he's going to be a lame duck. I think I might have been right. I'm sorry to say that, Dr. Lopkin.
Yeah,
I'm going to claim victory.
Already a lame duck.
He could be a one and done, and then I'm not talking one term. I'm talking 1 year. Never happened in the history, at least any time I've been alive, and I've been alive a lot longer than I like to know.
Yeah, given that once we hit 2022, there's going to be a lot of focus on the midterm elections. His agenda could be dead before the end of this year. And, we've seen, and by the way, Manchin has said he might, vote for something with a ceiling of 1.5 trillion. Manchin is not the only roadblock because Kristen Sinema has been voting against this. She said she's not going to back this bill. And she was followed into the ladies' room by activists that didn't even know what they were talking about because they were attacking her for not putting immigration in this $3.5 trillion bill. You can't put immigration in a reconciliation bill. Reconciliation can only be used for spending.
There's so many social agendas in that bill, it'd make your head spin. It's not even
right. But
you might just call it a Democratic liberal agenda bill. It has nothing to do with infrastructure. Nothing.
But when questioned about these activists going into the ladies' room against her, Biden just went, "Oh, that happens all the time. It's just part of the process." And that pissed off Sinema. So the more these people attack her, the stauncher her opposition to this bill is going to be. And there's been a couple of Democrats who have floated that there are more Democratic senators behind Manchin and Sinema that are basically using them for cover, but they're not going to vote for it either. So there's a very, very strong possibility that the bill is dead.
And speaking of dead, Biden, I mean, every president gets heckled a little bit, but nothing like this. I mean, I don't think his ability to do public appearances is severely limited.
Oh, yeah. He has been heckled at every public appearance he's made since Afghanistan. It's getting worse. He doesn't even have to be there to be heckled.
No, there's football games and they're going, F you, Biden.
Yes, anybody who's watched college football, who's watched NASCAR, has heard the F.U. Biden chants coming out of the stands. And it was absolutely hysterical that the NBC sportscaster, I don't know her name, tried to cover this up and say, oh no, they were chanting, let's go, Brandon.
Ah,
No,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
they weren't. It was very clear what they were saying.
I'm
And
sure it was.
it's coming out more and more.
Now, speaking of a organization or an entity that's in trouble, Facebook doesn't look like it's smooth sailing for them, does it?
No, there's a lot of questions about why they had an outage this past Monday. It is suspicious to say the least, because not only did their sites go down, but from internal reports, their internal systems went down. So access badges stopped working. There have been rumors, and I stress that they are rumors. We don't have any evidence that this is actually true, but it is a strong possibility that one of the reasons that they went down is because Facebook was scrubbing their records after the whistleblower came out on Sunday.
It seems like cause and effect, wouldn't it?
It does seem like a logical cause and effect. It was very suspicious that they would suddenly have an outage right after the whistleblower came out. But they're in a lot of trouble, and of course Zuckerberg is going, well, it's not our fault. If you want, better regulations, Congress has to act. Yeah, because Congress is so effective.
Yeah, right. Well, there's also, speaking of effective, some of our agencies, starting with the IRS, have become weaponized, haven't they, Dr. Lotkin?
Yes, and this goes back to the Obama administration. Obama weaponized the IRS against conservative groups. He weaponized the FBI against the media. Now we're seeing the Justice Department be weaponized against parents that are against the Biden agenda in schools. Critical race theory, mask mandates, all of this has come up. Parents have a right to say, this is why we have parent teacher associations, so parents can have a say. You have the Biden administration weaponizing the Justice Department. You had, I think this was even better, was the incumbent governor of Virginia coming out and saying parents have no business having a say over their children's education.
Yeah, well, we live in a different era. It's certainly, even if you look, I grew up on the old show, The FBI, and it looked like, Efren Zimbalist Jr. The FBI is basically an arm, and so is the CIA of the Democratic liberal agenda. Scary times. Well, Dr. Lotkin, great show, and you can tell our listeners how can they gain access to our insights.
Yeah, you can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts. You can also find us on the carnivoreradio.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and wherever you find podcasts.
Thank you, Dr. Lotkin. Thank our listeners.
We'll see you next week.